I can find simple interest. Simple interest is calculated once when the loan is given to you. Now, in the real world, we don't usually use simple interest. We use something called compound interest, which is recalculated every single month. But here we're going to be using simple interest. The formula is I equals PRT. The I stands for the interest. That is the charge that the bank is adding onto your loan, or if it's an investment, it's the amount the bank is giving you for putting that money in the bank. P is our principal, and that is the amount of money that you are borrowing or investing. R is our rate. Our percentage rate, like maybe 8%, 11%. The important thing, though, is please change that into a decimal. And then T is going to be our time, and that is going to be in years. So if something is 6 months, then we're not going to use the number 6. We're going to use half, because that's half of a year. But if it says 6 years, then we would use 6. Angela earns 5% interest on a savings account. How much would she earn if she had $500 saved for 3 years? So that interest is the principal, how much she's investing, which is 500, times the rate as a decimal, so 5% would be 0.05, times the time in years, which is 3 years. So then I just head over to my calculator and I put in 500 times 0.05 times 3. And I get that interest is $75. So that is how much she is earning on that investment. What is the interest on a $53,000 loan at 3.3% for 10 years? So the P is how much you are borrowing, $53,000, times the rate as a decimal, which would be 0.033, times the time in years, which is 10 years. Then I go to my calculator, put in 53,000 times 0.033 times 10 years, and that comes out as $17,490. Please remember your labels. We don't want any naked numbers. A credit card charges 11% simple interest. What is the interest charge on $120 for 3 months? So the first number is how much money you're borrowing, $120. The next is the rate as a decimal, so times 0.11. And then the next is the time in years, but I am not going to use 3 because 3 months is not a full year. So I can either put it as a fraction, 3 out of the 12 months, or I could put it as a decimal. That is 25.25 of a year. And then I go to my calculator and just multiply these 3 numbers together. And that is going to be $3. It comes up as 3.3, but please remember that money has to go to the penny, so add that 0 on there to get it $3.30. A bank charges 6% interest on a 30-year mortgage. How much simple interest will be charged if the mortgage is for $250,000? So the first number is how much you are borrowing. The next number is the rate as a decimal. The next number is the time in years. Then go to your calculator and just multiply those together. And that came out as $450,000. Now, just a quick comment on that. That is just the fee for the bank. So the bank is charging you $450,000 to loan you the $250,000. So ultimately, altogether, you would be paying $700,000 for this loan at the end. But be careful if the question asks for that or not. This question did not ask for that 700 number. It asked for the 450,000. Okay, Brian took out a student loan for $9,000. He is charged 8% simple interest and holds the loan for 10 years. How much will he pay back total? Now, this one is asking for total. So interest is the $9,000 he borrowed times the 0.08% as a decimal and times the 10 for the years. 9,000 times 0.08 times 10 gives you $7,200. They would like to know how much he's paying back total. So he's paying back the $9,000 that he borrowed and the $7,200 in fees. So that comes out to $16,200. And lastly, we have a car for sale for $8,500. What would be the simple interest on a car loan for the total amount at 3% for 7 years? So we only want the interest on this one. How much you borrowed times your rate as a decimal times your time. Type it in your calculator with your multiplications, times 0.03 times 7, and that interest is $1,785.